have Mr. Gordon do the prayer and then the pledge of allegiance by Ms. Oliver.
Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together in this great city. Thank you for the way that you've blessed us, things that you've done for us, the place that you've brought us from, where you've taken us to. Lord, we look forward to the things that we're going to do in this city. We pray that you would bless each one of our efforts as we try and attempt to serve to the best of our ability. Lord, we pray that you would forgive us of our sins and watch over us and keep us in your safety. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Olive?
Here.
Mr. Gordon?
Here.
Mr. Lenore?
Here.
Mr. Hamlin?
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Let the record show that the quorum is present, and we thank you for attending, and we thank those of you in the audience for being present as well. As far as announcements are concerned, this has been the month of June and early July. Those months have been good months for us. We've been received a lot of good information as it relates to our activities. We closed the year, as you know, from our special meeting back in at the end of June, and we've started the new budget year, and we're looking forward to this 08-09 year. This is the last year in our term, and our terms as alderpersons and mayor. I think that we've made significant progress. We've had ups and downs. This has been a year with tragedies and a lot of joys, but through it all, we made it through it, and it was a test of our ability to survive and rebound and just keep on coming. A couple of announcements that you might be interested in. One, we applied for and we received a Community Development Block Grant award. We were awarded a block grant, and it's in the area of, what is it, about $450,000? $450,000, and this is for sewer improvement. And as you know, we try to compete for these grants every year. This is through Housing and Urban Development and through the state of Louisiana. It's Community Development Block Grant money, and they specify what we can apply for and the priorities that have been established, or for street improvement, for sewer improvement, for some economic development activities, for a limited number of housing projects, and for special projects. And we, with our consultant, make these applications, and we have been successful just about in every round that we've applied for. So Sandra went to Baton Rouge, Ms. Goldman went to Baton Rouge week before last, I believe? Last Monday, yeah. She has to go and attend, it's a mandatory workshop that she has to go to receive the official documentation and training, and she comes back and we start putting things together, and you'll be asked at the appropriate time to give us permission to go out to bid and establish and procure engineers and all that other kind of stuff. So the sewer grant will be a part of the larger picture that we've been addressing over the years, addressing the needs of our wastewater treatment program. We have sections of the city that have been identified as having severe and significant needs, and we address those needs by contracting out the services of going in and replacing lines and relining areas and just doing all that kind of stuff. But this helps us because were it not for these grants, we simply couldn't afford to do the work that's necessary, and we would be in violation of Department of Environmental Quality regulations and standards. I was telling our contracted company that handles our wastewater treatment program, usually, and this is a perfect example, on a day like today, we would have manholes that would come up and flip up, and we've had cars turned over and flipped and all that because the excess, we call it I&I, which is one of those acronyms for inflow and infiltration. Excess water that gets into our sewer lines would lift the manholes up, and they would almost serve as a launching ramp, and a car would run over them and flip them, or sometimes the water would lift the lid off the manhole and move the manholes, and cars would run into the manholes and have accidents and tear up tires and front ends and all that kind of stuff. So with the assistance of our wastewater treatment program, our contractors, we've eliminated that problem to a large extent, and we're gradually addressing the situations that were prevalent and that were in violation with the sewer system. We're really happy about that, and we look forward to working with Veolia Water and our engineering firms and diagnosing the areas that we need to address and spending the money wisely. That's $450,000 that we didn't have in our coffers, but because the need is there, and because we were able to address it by identifying it, we've been able to, we were happy to receive that. The second is a project, and I'm going to just mention that we received it, and I'll let Mark Vereen talk about it a little bit more when he comes up. It's I call it an entry sign project. It's about $300,000 or more, and you're talking about a change that's going to occur in the city of Bastrop. You have no idea how we're going to look once this thing starts. My staff and many of you are aware that I've been working, we labeled something a couple of years ago called Operation First Impression. And the concept is that many people pass through Bastrop maybe only once. And you know the old saying, you only have one time to make an impression on somebody, and that's the first time. Many people come through Bastrop on 139, 425, 165, and they pass through and they're going to Arkansas or going south or east or west, and they make that determination. They make a decision and they make an assessment of our community based on that impression. And we work extremely hard to try to keep our major thoroughfares in some presentable order. Well, this project, and again, I keep saying I'm going to let Mark talk about it, but this project will do a lot to address that. We're dealing with issues and addressing them as we see them, as we see the need and as we can afford to. You know, and we've talked about this, that we have a sales tax renewal, 2 propositions on the ballot on the 19th of July, which is Saturday of next week. We've tasked each other, members of the Board of Alderpersons and staff, to make the public aware that these 2 half-cent sales tax will be represented to the public, and they'll be 10-year sales taxes. We did the budget a couple weeks ago, and if you remember the figures on there, our sales tax revenue projection is $5 million plus, $5.2, $5.3 million. The 3-cent sales tax that we collect, we're projecting to bring in more or less $5.5 million, somewhere between $5 and $5.5 million. 1 cent brings us between $900 and $1 million somewhere. So we're projecting that this 1 cent will bring us somewhere 1.8, 1.9, depending on the economy, $1 million of that 5.2. And you can see what a significant part of our budget that sales tax represents. And it is so important for us to make the public aware of how important that is to our operation and encourage them to think positively about voting for that tax. And people think that when tax renewals come up and propositions are made, that we're threatening them when we talk about how devastating it would be if we didn't renew the tax, but it's just a fact. Even though our budget showed $12 million, and we were talking about this in council meeting, that budget reflected the RAND that we do every year, $1.5 million that we borrow very early in our fiscal year. It represents grants that we receive because we project we're going to get these. So our actual revenue from property tax, sales tax, and fees and fees and fines is probably somewhere closer to $10 million. So if you take 1.9 from that 10, we're talking 20% of our budget could possibly be gone. That's just facts. Those are the numbers. So it's important for our public to realize, and those of you who are in this audience and those who are viewing us and will be viewing us by blogging on the internet, it's important for folks to realize how important it is that we renew that proposition. We have some issues with personnel in both the police and fire department and other areas, and we lose a lot of our personnel to other bodies. One is just across the street, across the parking lot. We lose officers and employees constantly to the sheriff's department because they pay more than we do. We can't afford to pay more than we're paying because we don't have more money coming in. We can't do more services than we do because we don't have more money coming in. And we constantly have this thing, well, y'all need to cut something. Do we cut parks and recreation? If we do, then we don't have facilities for activities. Do we cut personnel in public works, which people think we should? Then we can't. We have crews out right now. There was a tree that fell as a result of the little storm cell that we had coming through a minute ago over on Bitterson and back in that area down South Washington. Well, if we cut public works, then we won't have the folks that we had to call back out who left at 4 o'clock to come out and get the equipment from the shop, take it down there, cut the tree up, move it out of the way, and come back and finish that up tomorrow. We've been talking to our personnel who use vehicles in public works and police department about how we use our vehicles. I talked to the chief just the other day about we're going to have to encourage our officers to get out of the vehicles and cut them off and walk the streets more, because idling causes uneconomical utilization of fuel and other techniques. You know, we got to be more concerned about turning lights off in rooms and conserving the use of our air conditioners and things that we didn't think about. We got to think about them now because fuel cost and the city of Bastrop, believe me, doesn't get any discounts that anybody else, from anybody else. We pay the same fees, if not sometimes I think higher fees, because they think that we have deep pockets. But that's where we are. We encourage people to participate in the system. We encourage, again, we've talked about this in Finance Committee meeting. As Board of Alderpersons and the Mayor, we have the responsibility of making our public as aware as possible in whatever venue you can of the importance of going out on the 19th and voting. This is early voting week. Early voting will end on Saturday. For those folks who prefer, they can go to the Registrar Voters Office and vote early. There are going to be some efforts as this voting season starts, and you've been hearing on TV about the congressional election. Congress people, senators, and representatives will have an election on September 6th, and they are starting to qualify and launch their campaigns, and so we'll be voting local election for sales taxes in July, and congressional folks in September, and the city marshal and city judge in October, and then the president in November. So for the next 4 or 5 months, we're in the mix of it. It's important that we encourage, and that's not to mention the local election that we'll be having next spring, because all of us that choose to seek re-election will be qualifying and running for that. So it's important that you encourage folks not only to register and vote, but to encourage those folks who are registered already to vote. And you'll be seeing a lot of efforts on the part of folks who are encouraging registration and voting, either for that particular issue or just to be patriotic. So those are my announcements, and those are my updates. The legislative session ended. We're waiting. we're waiting to see what they did while they were down there. There is some clarification on the ethics legislation, and we're trying to cipher through that. There'll be sessions at the LMA convention in Lafayette in August, which should bring some clarity to it. They did make some modifications in this ethics legislation that applied to folks who served on boards and commissions, and they modified it. And those of you who went to the district meeting, you got a handout on it. It's not extremely clear, but there's some population breaks that apply to whether or not you have to do the reporting if you're on those boards of commission. You, in most cases, on this body, don't have to report because your districts aren't at the population category that requires it. I do because Bastrop is 13,000, but your districts aren't 5,000 unless they changed it. So you might be exempt from that because of your alderperson position, but boards and commissions, as I appreciate it, unless you're on a board of commission that represents a population of over 20,000, you might be exempt. But we're waiting on clarification for that. This election in July, as I appreciate it, will be the last time that there will be an election in July for proposition and taxes. The legislature decided that because the July election turnout was so low, they felt that it wasn't cost effective to continue doing that. So after August 15th, the law takes effect August 15th, and that will eliminate this July election date on the calendar as a date for propositions and taxes to be held. They said the public bodies would put stuff on the July ballot because they know that will be low turnout and it's easy to pass it, but I don't think there's any such thing as an easy tax to pass. But anyway, that's where that is. And as we get information as to what the actions of our legislation mean, then we'll be sure and pass that on. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of our last meetings. We had our regular meeting on June 12th, and you've had a chance to receive these minutes and peruse them. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we adopt the regular meeting, June the 12th.
June 12th minutes. A motion has been made to approve those. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose should say no. The ayes have it. And we had a special meeting on June 30th.
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Olive makes the motion.
I'll second her motion.
Jointly seconded by Mr. Gordon and Mr. Hamlin. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose should say no, and the ayes have it as well. Mr. Hamlin, if you'll give us the Finance Committee report, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we adopt ordinance 08-4176, bills and claims for the month of June.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Hamlin.
I'll second his motion.
Mr. Gordon seconds Mr. Hamlin's motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed may say no. There are no noes, and ayes are in the majority. That motion passes. Mr. Vereen, we're pleased to see you. Hope you're feeling well today. If you give us a report on Main Street.
As the mayor did announce, we were informed. I was actually off, and I got a call from the firm that we had been working with, Patrick Moore Planning Group. And I think a while back I'd given y'all, and I made copies for everybody, a copy of this design that they had come up with to enhance the entrances into the city. And that is what the mayor was referring to. And it is $317,000, which is a really unbelievable thing, and will, like the mayor said, enhance the city. And projects like this don't come along that often. We were very fortunate to get it, and it's not just going to make it look good coming into town. Things like this even help Miss King with Medco. She gets, like the mayor said, we get one opportunity to impress people. She gets one opportunity to impress a company that has wanted to come here and check out Bastrop, because they're going to come look at Bastrop before they want to move their company and employees here. So it's a whole circle effect that's going to benefit. They're going to come in and see this. This is going to catch their eye and think this town's really got it together, which we do. So I'm going to leave these for y'all to take home and look at.
I'm glad you said that. They're thinking that we do, huh?
That's right. Other than that, we've been trying to get, as you know, with the gas prices and everything, what I've kind of heard from the downtown merchants, things are a little slower than normal this time of year. It's always a little slower right now because people are going on vacation. So we're trying to spur some activity and get some people downtown. We had one little event of this past weekend, kind of like a sidewalk sale. It was very popular. They did it for 2 days. Brought a lot of people in. We tried to catch, there was a big reunion in town for Delta. There was a golf tournament. There was a big class reunion. And there was, not to mention just family reunions. A lot of people coming in through town. We wanted to pull off some traffic off the highway as well. So, and it worked. It brought in a lot of people. We also have another big group of people coming in with a church event. And we're trying to work with the church, and they've been more cooperative. We're going to try and host some of the people from, while their youth is at the activity, invite the parents downtown, come shopping, and they're going to have some activities for them, not activities, but food and things like that at the visitor center for them. So something like that. We're just trying to get our tourists and our people that are visiting our town to come see it and take a little bit of it back with them. We are working on, I get asked all the time about music on Main Street. We had a big event out at the fairgrounds because it was a little bit bigger than we would have had downtown a couple weeks ago, and we're planning something in the fall back downtown, free to the public, like we're customary to doing. So we're looking forward to that too. A lot of people are anxious for that. But right now, our main focus is going to be, I think, getting this the work needed to get this application pushed through. The rest of the paperwork, I'm sure the mayor's got some stuff for y'all to get this gateway enhancement. I think that's what we called it, Mayor. Yeah, Bastrop Gateway and Medians. And the mayor and I talked too. We're hopeful that too. This is phase one of a continued project to where we can. This is getting you at the gateway, you know, the entrance into Bastrop. But then we want to get coming in or going out, cleaning up the sidewalks, you know, more attractive street lights, things that you see. And when you go to other towns and you say, well, that was a nice looking town. They got it probably through grants. Like the mayor said, it's too expensive. No town hardly can afford. Some of these things are just very expensive. So we're hoping this can be the beginning of a big project that we've got going.
Okay, let's tie something in with it. I need you to stay there, Mark. As we go into this project, I need a motion, and this might be really controversial and it might be hard for y'all to do, but I need a motion to accept this grant. It needs to be a part of our record. This is a motion to accept. And what's the official title?
The LADOTD Enhancement Program for Landscaping Projects. That's what it was titled. And then we got it Bastrop Gateway Medians.
The Gateway Median. We need to. I need a motion to accept this grant, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
Mr. Gordon.
how much was the total on the grant?
Sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
$317,000.
And let me clarify. Of the 317,000. As in most grants, it's not 100%. There is a portion that the city of Bastrop will be infusing into it, and it's part of the engineering and design and consulting costs. That will be $83,000, but that $83,000 will be paid over a 2.5-year period. So there is no large impact on the city of Bastrop, and that $83,000, some of it can be in-kind services.
That's correct.
And all. But there will be some cash outlay for the consultant. And the way that you get grants like of this kind, that in CDBG, is the more participation the municipality has in the project, the more points you get, which makes you more eligible for it. So the overall grant will be about $400,000 if you put the in-kind and the consultant fees. The city of Bastrop has to infuse in it $400,000 total.
I'll make a motion to accept the grant for $317,000.
Mr. Gordon does.
I second.
Ms. Robinson seconds his motion. If you're in favor. Is there any other discussion?
I wanted to ask, what determines how it's spent? or is that specified in the grant?
There is somewhat of a plan, but it is up to, actually, I guess the mayor and council would work with them. We've kind of worked with them and told them what we'd like, and that's their preliminary drawings. Of course, that is subject to y'all's discretion and the mayor's, I guess.
But the overall, the concept and basic structure is approved. They approve us spending it on entry, gateways, and the concept that was presented by our consultant is basically what they approved, so there will be, a lot of sticking to this basic concept.
It is, that's correct. It's project specific, as the mayor's saying.
That we do not go to jail by misusing money.
No. And there's funds, too, I want to clarify, because a lot of times people think, well, why didn't we get $317,000 for IP? It's not out there for that. This was already out there for projects like this, so that's why we're getting it for these types of projects. It's going to help in a lot more ways than just making the entrance to Bastrop look good.
Any other questions? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no. The ayes have it. Secondly, Mr. Vereen, while you're there, you are involved in this as well. We are in an ongoing project. I guess formally it's the restoration of the old Bastrop High School building. Mark has been here, and Tom Crumley has been here, and several other folks have been here and talking about historic preservation grant and Louisiana Housing Finance Agency getting tax credits in restoring the old Bastrop, high school. One of the steps that's necessary to make that project work is we have to procure a developer consultant kind of person. And we've advertised, done the proper advertisement, and we've selected a person that we wanted to use for our developer consultant, and his name is Tom Crumley, and it's with Woodworth Entities, I believe, or something like that. But Tom Crumley is the person that we're recommending that this body procures to handle that for us. It's item number 13 on the agenda, and I'm going out of order. But I would like to, with Mr. Vereen being there, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept my recommendation to procure the services of Tom Crumley and his firm to help us in handling that.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept Tom Crumley.
Mr. Hamlin does.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Jointly seconded by Ms. Olive and Mr. Gordon. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose should say no. Okay, let's see, what else, while you're up there. I
One
think-
step closer to the school getting done.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic project. We're having some battles to fight in that, because tax credits that were 91 cents when we started are now at 81 cents, which is leaving some gaps in there. And I've been on the phone with the governor's office and the Congress people's offices and Louisiana Housing Finance Agency and Rural Development and anybody else to try to close that gap. But it's an ongoing effort, but we plan to see that through. Thank you, Mr. Vereen. We appreciate you. Hope you continue to feel better. Okay, going back in order, Ms. King with Med. Thank you for coming in the rain. You see the service we provide. We sent somebody out to get you out of the car, right?
Thank you. I was actually talking on the telephone, so, but he did come out to get me, and I thanked him. But it was raining pretty hard when I got here.
Okay.
We were experiencing some heavy rainfall up north.
We asked for it and we got it, right?
Yes, and I would like to commend our Main Street program for the hard work that they've done. I believe I had initially set in on that project to hear what was going on, and I do want to leave people with the impression that we have many different groups in this community that do a wonderful job at accessing money, and some of this money, it is set aside for different types of projects. But by having lots of groups that are out working, then we can do so much more. And I commend the City of Bastrop too, because when you get these grants and things, that the City of Bastrop has to be very diligent at filling out all the paperwork, and you have to put these projects together to where they make sense. And the City of Bastrop has to have some money to back them on those projects. And I really want to reiterate how important the sales tax is, because no one wants to move to a town that doesn't have any money. And it's very important from an economic development standpoint that we look successful and that we are successful. And we do that by having the support of the citizens and being willing to support these projects with their tax dollars as well. And I'd like to present the Gold Team City Award for 2008. Don Terry with Energy, the regional, our regional representative with Energy, it regrets that he could not be here tonight. He had a conflict. He did come to our board meeting this month, and he once again stated that Energy feels that the City of Bastrop and Morehouse Parish is an area that they have targeted as having great potential for growth. And as we see all of these projects that are unfolding that are very positive for this area, we know that this is absolutely the truth, and we all have that idea. And I can't sell something if I don't believe it, and I believe it. So I'd like to present Mayor Hawkins this plaque. We do get these pretty regular, but it's always nice to be reminded that we're successful.
There's no guarantee, is there?
That's right. There's no guarantees, but if we don't try, we're certainly not going to be successful. And at this conference, where they talk about the Team City, they did unveil a wonderful service that Energy is going to be offering, and I have taken advantage of this service by providing the website for Energy with some additional building information. They've got the floor plan for the Ditto building. I talked to the young lady that was working on that, and that should be on there shortly. Added the Scott Tractor building to their website. And the wonderful thing about this new service that Energy is going to be providing is for even areas that are not under their service area. So this building site, location, website, where people can pull up demographic data from a very expensive demographic package, will be available. And by offering it throughout the state, I hope it becomes a tool that many site selectors will look at regular. And so that gives Morehouse Parish that opportunity to present that material to people nationwide. So I do feel like that this particular service will become a leader in site location and buildings, for a tool for locators. And in talking about additional things that are positive, we did have the meeting with the Regional Economic Development Organization, and I think that what we just need to continue to work on that, because we see that our power is in numbers. And when we align ourselves with projects that are very positive for the region, and that we get the support of not 30,000 people in Morehouse Parish, but when we begin to gain the support of 160,000 or 200,000 people, that we have strength in those numbers. And I think that by associating ourselves with other organizations and working on jointly beneficial projects, that we stand to win. And I think with the potential for I-69 and the I-530 corridor coming down to connect the city of Monroe or the Interstate 20 area, that we have a great potential to gain from working with a 5-parish regional group from the Monroe area. I've talked with the gentleman from the state, and it's obvious that we need better transportation from Bastrop to Monroe. When the 425 is completed, there's going to have to be, and this is what he said, there's going to have to be some improvements on 165. And I don't think it's going to be in this 30-year time frame, but as we look at this project and we plan and we try to associate projects with the I-69, I think that we have a higher potential to get projects to solve some of our immediate problems. So we will continue to work on that, and on the area in the 165 corridor that I've been very interested in on developing infrastructure. I did hear back from our grant application. They have asked me for some additional information, so that is moving forward, and I feel very positive that we will get the money. Sometimes it's a process that we go through, and it doesn't happen overnight, but I feel like that we are in line to get that money.
This is a grant for?
For the infrastructure improvements, where we're looking at the sewer improvements, actually sewer south from the city of Bastrop to the Ouachita Parish line.
And remember, Ms. King has said this before, think about how Monroe is growing north to the Ouachita Parish line. Once you cross the parish line, it might be a trailer park, but from that parish line on into Monroe, there's constant growth and change. Every time you go through there, something is happening along that strip. But it's amazing, though, that we in Bastrop and Morehouse Parish aren't growing that way. And from demographic, sociological perspective, usually smaller cities grow toward the next largest city, and we are growing in an arbitrary manner in the city of Bastrop, and I'm not saying arbitrarily from most norms. One of the factors that we aren't growing more toward to the south, going down 165, is because of the land that is possessed by ULM. And Ms. King is saying that we can't grow very much that way because there's no infrastructure. Many of you, and it was before my time as well, but I think you've heard us talk about the fact that the sewer system stops, the city of Bastrop sewer system stops at Eugene Ware Road, Bell Jackson Road, the road where Tim Daniels is building his facility, because our sewer line basically goes down West Madison 165 and it makes that right turn and goes in Eugene Ware Road to our oxidation pond there. Beyond there, there's virtually no public sewer, with the exception of a line that the Chevrolet dealer put in himself for his private use when he built the Chevrolet dealership many years ago. Everybody else down along that way, they are either on their private sewer system. I don't think there's a sewer district out that way at all. So if we expect there to be development between here and that area, there has to be some infrastructure put out there. There has to be some water lines. There has to be sewer systems. Nobody's going to come and build a building if they don't have the basic infrastructure. A good friend that I have if you're going down 165, you know where the power plant is on the right. It used to be a car lot, a house, and it has a sign up there. So we know the person because she's building a daycare center there. She can't move in her daycare center because she does not have water sufficient enough to meet the requirements of Department of Health and Human Services. Sterlington has water in that subdivision behind that building going toward the bayou, but there isn't enough water pressure to suffice over there. So infrastructure is needed in order for there to be growth. And we have to be proactive, and this is what Ms. King is doing, is she's being proactive in applying for money so that we can put in infrastructure, so that we can say, hey, come and locate your building, your business, come and develop this area, and we have the infrastructure in there. That's why our industrial park has grown to the extent that it is, because the previous administration, Mr. Hamlin and the people who were part of the Board of Alderpersons before now, built the industrial park, and they put sewer and water and streets in there. So when she shows that property, people can see that all I have to do is come and get this lot and build on it because I have the supporting infrastructure in place. That's a necessity. That's a necessity, and we applaud you for doing that.
Yes, and I think at this point, we're probably looking at a two-phase project, and we're going to address some of the area down to NAF, which currently has water but no sewer. But it's a little bit easier to get money to do that. But then we're a jump closer because we hit the ULM property, and that actually covers about 2 miles on 165, 2 miles of the frontage. So this really has acted to sever the growth of that area. But there are some ways to potentially develop the ULM property, and even many people cite some of the wetlands and some of those areas in there as being a deterrent. But there are some types of companies that prefer areas that are surrounded by something that's not going to develop. So we have a lot to offer in that corridor, in addition to fiber optic cable and the close proximity to the Sterlington area.
Plus the rail service.
And rail. So there's a lot to offer in that area, and I feel like that if we persevere on that, we will be successful.
That's our growth opportunity. It definitely is.
And then the last thing is to point out on the industrial park that we haven't had any available buildings. We were fortunate enough after the hurricanes to fill all of the buildings, the existing buildings, and many companies come to areas where they have an existing building. I've been contacted on many occasions by people. I could not find a building that actually suited what they were looking for, and they didn't want to build, they wanted something right then. And that since Mr. Daniels is moving to 165, his building is going to be available, so that's going to give us a building, and a building under the most pleasant of circumstances, that is, he's actually expanding. And so it won't be our building, but it will be a building available, and that hopefully we can attract another smaller company into our industrial park, and they can grow in the Bastrop area too. And I think that that is our future, is attracting smaller companies and growing these companies in our area. So does anyone else have any questions about?
Mr. Hamlin?
Ms. King, what did you say in reference to extending to Nav Street? Did you say you had grants to extend sewer or water?
I think that in the first phase of this, they have water all the way down to NAF. They have a very good supply of water that circles through NAF back to Highway 139, but there's no sewer. So I think that we'll concentrate on sewer for the first phase, and then try to put in a second phase that's going to really address some of the areas where there's not any population to amount to anything right at the moment. Those are harder areas to deal with, but once you get a little bit closer with your existing infrastructure, it becomes less of a problem because you can actually do a small area and pump it back into where the existing sewer is at. So,
Which brings up, and I'm going to pursue with Veolia Water. Naturally, people are going to assume that the city of Bastrop, and I heard this said yesterday or the day before at the meeting, that the city of Bastrop has capacity, and once they build the infrastructure, they're going to pump it back to our pond. But we got to have some conversations about that.
yeah, and we're still looking at that. And actually, my conversations with the engineer has been that we will be looking at and providing the city of Bastrop some analysis on that too, on what kind of capacity that you actually have.
Yeah.
And
we'll
it
listen to
depends
them,
on
but
what
we're
kind
going to
of
do our own
development.
study now. The other thing is, and I hope this might be boring, but this is very important. One of the things that we've talked to, and I don't know where IP is with it or not, one of the things that conversations we've had is about talking to IP about using their stabilization basin or whatever that treatment thing is out there.
Yeah, and that's another one of those things that
That's an
really
option.
we've talked about it some, but we're a little bit away from that
Yeah.
just yet.
Yeah. There are a lot of options, and we explore. Believe me, we explore all options as we talk about this situation.
And we will be working with the city of Bastrop. I know that we can make some assumptions that you might have some excess capacity there, but it depends on how much development we anticipate.
One thing needs to be made clear, and you're probably saying, okay, that area down 165 South is not a part of the city of Bastrop. But just as we talked about the gateway piece, and just as we talk about the regional economic development concept, in our boundary, our city is basically 5 miles square. Even though we are specifically concerned and particularly charged with what happens within our boundaries, but we know for a fact that what happens outside the boundaries of Bastrop impacts us largely. So, you know, we've always been collaborative in our efforts, whether it's the fire district or whether it's emergency planning and management or you know, whatever it is. So we're going to have to think about it from that perspective, because what happens out there impacts us positively or negatively. Lack of does just as well as having the access to does as well. So that's why we're talking about that from this perspective.
Yes, and I will be sure to keep you and the Board of Alderpersons informed of the developments as we move this along. I think sometimes people kind of want to jump ahead of the engineer. That's what we need the engineering for, is to tell us what we need and how we can lay this out. But sometimes people, in their excitement to try to get something done, they try to jump ahead of that and try to figure out how much it's going to cost and those kind of things. And that's what we actually need the work done. That's what we actually need the money from the USDA to do some of that work.
Okay.
So, is there anything else? Any other
Any
questions?
questions for Ms. King?
I have one question.
Ms. Robinson?
So Mr. Daniels is not going to keep the building at the park
That is
open?
what, in a conversation that I had with him earlier in the week, he did indicate that he will be putting the building up for sale. And I do have a couple of prospects on that building that I'm going to have to dig their names back out of the file. But I will be contacting them, because if they were in the market once, they may still be in the market. So.
Well, I was just wondering, because it was my understanding that in the beginning that the companies that he supplies the products to had encouraged him to keep both places open once he got the new building finished. So.
Well, that was just what he told me earlier in the week.
Okay.
So I think he's got a really large building out there on 165, so maybe he's decided that it would be in his best interest to.
Yeah.
And I think it might be in our best interest to try to bring a business in there for him.
I hope so.
In the most perfect world, we could afford to build another spec building. You know, we built 2, and even though they were vacant for a while, but eventually they were full, and a bird in a building on the ground is better than the concept. And as we talk about buildings, somebody probably says, well, what about the Ditto building? The Ditto building was a building built for a specific purpose. And our situation now, and Ms. King spends endless hours, and as well as all the rest of us, in promoting that building, but it was built as a cut and sew operation, and the sidewall heights and other factors in there create some limitations, even though there are some parts that can be flexible. We have some ideas about it. We're pursuing those, but in most cases, as she said, whenever any opportunity that meets our capacity comes along, we're busy sending in and responding to it. In fact, we had a textile manufacturer, one of our citizens, read an article in the Morning Advocate about a company that was in textile business that was opening in South Louisiana, and they were looking for the second location in Louisiana. And this citizen works at the mill, and he's just aware. He brought us the article, and we jumped on it immediately and found out that they had kind of decided where they were going. I believe was that
Yeah, and from what I had dug through research, that the other mill was going to be in the same location.
Yeah.
They weren't really searching for another site, and I'm almost. We don't always know. We get RFPs, these requests for proposals, and I don't always know what these are going to be, but I can almost tell you when I got that RFP through, and one of the requests was for a deep water port.
Yeah.
And there's just some things that,
We don't fit.
the city of Bastrop doesn't have a deep water port, and
Right.
we're not going to be competitive for those. But that we have other things, and I think one of the things that Mayor Hawkins and I have talked about is safety. And as we see a lot of disasters throughout the country, we're very fortunate to live in an area where we haven't, in my lifetime, had any kind of real natural disaster here in the Bastrop area. So other than a little bit of flooding in the Monroe area, we're pretty safe in this area. I feel safe.
Weatherproof.
Weatherproof. And
Okay.
well, it's a thunderstorm outside, so I'm not going to say that too loud. But
Okay.
but I appreciate being able to come here tonight and appreciate everything that the City of Bastrop does for our organization, and we'll continue to work together to make good things happen.
Thank you again, and we appreciate your efforts. You keep us going, and we appreciate the intensity of your efforts and the results.
Thank you.
I have a question in reference to the Ditto building. What's the rate of deterioration on it at this point? And is there anything being done to?
I think it was pretty deteriorated when the city obtained it. I can't see that it's gotten any worse. I mean, there were panels missing off the sides, and that was just a result of it sitting empty for a long time before the City of Bastrop got it. And I think that that's one thing that I hear comments in the community is why the City of Bastrop let that building sit there until it just fell apart. But the thing is, it wasn't under the control of the City of Bastrop until the spring, right before we had the hurricanes. And so it couldn't have been in any more unopportune time when Mayor Hawkins, after a lot of diligent work, he finally got the building. But I can tell you from looking at the building, there's a lot of concrete in that foundation. There's a great frame on that building, and
Land.
And the land, and so and plus there's 30 acres behind it that is available, had been available for purchase. I had been in contact with the person that owned it, and he lives in Texas, and it's available at a fairly reasonable price. So, you know, that building, it does have some potential. It does have some drawbacks, like Mayor Hawkins was saying, that the eave heights are not exactly what the target markets for Bastrop might not exactly fit the eave heights right at the moment. The slab thickness was built for a sewing factory. And so there's many opportunities that we've had to put somebody in that building, but the building is just not it's just not suitable.
That's going to have to be significant modifications for it, and it's a matter of us finding the fit for it. It can accommodate a lot of businesses and a lot of situations, but our thing is to try to find the round peg that fits into that round hole. That's our task.
Yeah, and the advantage is that there are practically no buildings left in Louisiana with 150,000 square feet in them.
Right.
So it is something that when the right thing comes along, we'll be ready for it. But we did kind of have a setback there with the hurricanes. I think that we were going really good, and we just had a setback, and now we have some economic things that are happening to our nation, and as far as that, to the world right at the moment. And sometimes we have to just keep being diligent and keep doing what we need to be doing and not be discouraged, because I think that we really are going very positive here right now.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Fowler?
I concur that I see a lot of positive things, and when I raised the question about the deterioration, and I do recall all of the legal wrangling had to take place to acquire the title back to the city. And with that being said, is there anything available to stop the deterioration? Because the more it deteriorates, I would think that it makes it less marketable. And I recall the school, that was one of the problems, wasn't it, Mark, with the rate of deterioration with the school. And now that we own it, is it anything available?
Well, in that building with the metal roof and the metal walls, and in order to stop the deterioration, we'd have to do a major remodel, and there aren't funds to do that. So, and there aren't funds to do it because we don't have a prospect for it. And it's one of those situations we had and possibly still have some money, probably $650,000 maybe, still left in Baton Rouge. And that money can only be accessed when we have a bird in hand, when we have a prospect. I don't know if we as a body could justify going out and spending money on that building when we don't have a prospect to go in it. And even though we might say it's deteriorating, and it is because it's aging, that building is probably approaching 40 years of age by now. I'm thinking that was in the late 60s, early 70s when they started. I can remember the labor survey that they did before my children. I kind of judge everything by the age of my children. So the building is old, and Ms. King is right. There wasn't a lot of retrofitting and upgrading and maintenance on it before they closed. And I don't know what we can do, Ms. Olive, unless we decide to spend money on it. And I don't know where we get the money from to do that right now.
Yeah, and I think the state is in the same position that the city of Bastrop would be in, that with possibly other projects around to put the money in where they have a viable prospect, that it really is difficult to say, let's put $1 million into this building. But if we come to them with a good plan, we can find the right fit, and we come to them with a good plan, I think that we have a good potential to sell it. And even though the steel is old, it's still a good steel building.
Yeah.
And the exterior panels and all of that are probably going to have to all be stripped off anyway. So I think that we have the basic structure there, and that we could, and the site infrastructure is in place, so we could put something in much quicker than if you were just going out to a plain site.
Greenfield.
Yeah,
Right.
greenfield site. And there's never been anything real hazardous at that facility. So
Yeah. We had to do asbestos abatement, and asbestos analysis, as well as lead, before we were able to buy it. The state wouldn't give us the money to do that. So environmentally, we're sound, and we just got to get busy and find somebody to go in there. And once we find somebody to go in there, we won't have any problem in getting money from the state to peel the skin off, retrofit it, and be up and running. But we got to find, so I need you to help us find that person, that group that can come in. Fiber optic lines are less than a half mile away. It's a half mile away from 165. All the assets are there. Got to find that fit. Okay, thank you, Ms. King.
Thanks.
Thank you for your portions as well. Let me insert. Joe, come up, please. I need to introduce you to a person. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you. Would you introduce yourself to the board of all the persons, and I'll tell you who Joe is.
I'm the new director, take care of the project manager for the Veolia's wastewater department.
Okay.
Name's Joe Fontenot.
Where y'all think he's from? With a name like Fontenot, where y'all think he's from? From Boston?
I'm originally from the New Orleans area.
But Joe is with Veolia Water. You know that Jesse, thank you. See, you say I forget people that quick, don't you? Don't leave the room now, you'll be forgotten. But Jesse White has moved on. He's assistant deputy director of the wastewater treatment program in Dallas, Texas, and we are happy for him. And Joe has come in, and I've received word, was it yesterday? Mm-hmm. Yesterday, that he's been coming in periodically and just being an interim manager and exercising interim oversight. But yesterday, I was introduced to him as the new manager of our program. He'll be moving to Bastrop with his family. The guy in the orange shirt is Mark Vereen. That's the guy I was telling you about. He's going to be, he has needs. He has a family, and regrettably, his needs aren't compatible with the corporate limits of Bastrop, because he has animals and he wants children. He got children that need space and all that, so he's going to be looking for property and space that what you got, horses?
Yeah.
Okay. And horses and children and family, so he'll be moving in to see us, and I told him that I'd introduce him to some realtors so that he can be here. He said his family came and they spent most of the time in the pool.
Pretty much.
Well, Joe, we're glad to have you as part of our team.
Yes.
Welcome to our community.
Thank you.
Okay, look forward to working with you. Item number 8 on our agenda is to appoint the city clerk and the assistant city clerk of the city of Bastrop. This is an annual appointment, and I'm really pleased that the two ladies who have been serving in that position have done an outstanding job. I think they've served you well whenever you needed information. whenever there was information that was needed and records that were being kept and you needed resources, they satisfied you. So I want to submit to you my recommendation to refill the positions of clerk and assistant clerk with Ms. Sandra Goldman and Ms. Patrice Smith.
Mayor Hawkins, I'll make a motion upon your recommendation to retain these two ladies as a clerk and assistant clerk.
Mr. Gordon makes a motion.
I second.
The joint triplet. Y'all doing a trap. Good gracious, everybody. It's been seconded by Mr. Lenore, Ms. Olive, and Ms. Robinson of Mr. Gordon's motion to reappoint Ms. Goldman and Ms. Smith to the city clerk and assistant city clerk respectively. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. No, they didn't do this. Mr. Lawrence is involved in a case in Monroe, and he's been tied up. It's a week and a half now, 2 weeks. Started last week, and he emailed and called and said that he wouldn't be here, but I don't know what that other guy is.
What other guy?
The guy who used to be city prosecutor.
Oh, that guy.
But in absentia, I recommend that we reappoint Mrs. Bentley and Lawrence as city attorneys for the city of Bastrop.
Mayor Hawkins,
Miss Robinson,
could we table this to a later date?
I'll accept your recommendation that this be tabled. Moving on to item number 10, which is ordinance number 08-4169, an ordinance to amend the enabling ordinance of the City of Bastrop Historic District to regulate sidewalk sign usage in the historic district. You received a corrected copy of this ordinance as you came in, I believe. Ms. Scarborough gave you a copy that was corrected because the one that was in your packet had some typos on it. Mr. James is here. Oh, you're here already. Good enough. And I see some representatives of the business community here as well. So, Mr. James, you'd like to present to us? Welcome.
Thank you very much. We have this in a form that we think is acceptable to all the merchants in downtown, and we recommend that it be accepted.
Okay. Would you talk about any changes that are made to this from the previous one?
There was a minor change made to the height of the sidewalk signs, and rather than trying to give a dimension to the message portion of the sign, we assigned a square inch amount, and that accommodates signs being used around the square now.
Okay.
It's two small changes, and we think that they're good changes, and they make the ordinance a little more flexible.
Okay. You had input from members of that community?
I certainly did.
Okay. All right.
Question, Mayor.
Mr. Hamlin.
Is this total, or did this go along with the other one we had?
This is the form that we want to be accepted as you've received it this evening.
This is it.
There's some slight changes.
Well, I couldn't find my other one, but there was a penalty in there for failure to comply. Is that scratched out?
No, I think that is in the ordinance as it's written, and this is just going to be meshed into the ordinance, so those sorts of things are not changed or adjusted.
So this is
Did we vote? We never voted on the one you had last time, did we?
This is the continuation of the process.
So this goes along with that?
That's right.
Question.
Yeah.
There was a statement in there, if I'm not mistaken, it was a $500 fine per day for failure to comply.
Well, I'm going to ask. You'd have to be looking at it.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we need to delay until they get that to us, because if there's a penalty of $500 per day to comply, my question is, who's going to enforce it?
That's a good question.
And what we're going to, and where does that put the city or the police department? And I looked for that thing, I put it up, but I couldn't find it.
okay. Since we don't have it, first let's do this, and I accept what you're saying. Are there any questions that we need to ask Mr. James about this document that we received today first? Any questions about that? Mr. Israel, you've been before this body several times on this issue. Do you have any comments on it? If you'll come forward too, please, to be on the record.
I'm just here to see the process. I'm satisfied. Larry and I got together earlier today, and it accommodates my needs,
Okay.
and so I appreciate all the consideration that you guys have given me and the other merchants.
I definitely want to recognize you because you've been before us on this issue before, and I want to be sure that you have input and are comfortable.
I'm very satisfied.
Good enough then. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions that you want to ask Mr. James on this piece right here? And what I'm going to do is, since we don't have the completed document, and if we were to accept and vote on it, I would want you to have the completed document, the original plus this amendment, in order to adequately consider it. Is that, so we're basically tabling this, Mr. James? I think we're satisfied. And I know we can get a copy right quick, but I wouldn't want to thrust it in front of you without you having time. So, staff, I need you to put this together as one piece and then submit it to the council, Board of Alderpersons, before next council meeting so that we can consider it at that time.
And we will be very open to listening to the council to make any of those adjustments that you feel that are onerous. We will be glad to take a look at those things.
Very good, sir.
And thank you
very
for
much
bringing
coming.
that up.
We appreciate you. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for coming. Okay, on item number 11, resolution number 08-1241, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for security gate at the Morehouse Memorial Airport. Mr. Steve Litchfield, would you come forth in case there are questions about this item? This too is a grant, and you can see that the grants that we receive cover the spectrum. We've received grants for recreational activities in the past. You know, we got a grant to do the skate park. We received grants to do work in the municipal center. We received sewer grants and street grants and all kinds of grants, sidewalks and cleanup. So this is a grant that we are receiving from DOTD, Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, as part of a fencing funding. Is that correct, Mr. Litchfield?
Yes, that fencing's for '09.
And this is a part of that, but we need to adopt a resolution, which is a part of the package that needs to be submitted to the LA DOTD. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe they've approved, Ms. Sandra. They have approved.
Okay, but this resolution, though, has to be submitted as part of that package.
Correct, correct.
That's my point. So that's where we are.
May I make a motion that we adopt resolution 08-1241?
Mr. Lenore makes a motion.
I'll second Mr. Lenore's motion.
Mr. Gordon does. Is there any other discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no, and the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Litchfield. Yes, sir. Item number 12, again, goes along with grants. When you get CDBG grants, you have to adopt a anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan, because when you get these grants, they don't want you to get the grants and then go and move people off their properties and do all kinds of stuff like that. So there has to be a plan in place as to if we did have to move somebody or relocate something, there's a procedure that goes through it. It's item number 12 in your packet, and if you have any questions or is any discussion, this is a part. In order to get the grant, we got to do this.
And that's in reference to the...
CDBG, Community Development Block Grant.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt 08-1242.
Mr. Lenore makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Hamlin seconds his motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We did number 13 earlier. That was a procurement piece, procuring Mr. Tom Crumley. Item number 14 is discussion and/or action on teen Teen court sponsorship. We do this periodically. Who's handling that?
I'm wondering if somebody would be here from Teen Court.
What, go ahead, Mr. Lenore?
I'd just like to say this is, it's nothing new, it's just a continuation of what we've been doing to support Teen Court. It helps the youth, it also helps the system where the judges are working. There's some cases they don't have to deal with. And you also have students who are learning in the process. But it's nothing new added to it that I know of.
What do they ask for? $7,500.
$7,500.
And that's also a matching contribution by
Police jury.
the police jury.
They do.
Yeah. We used to alternate years. We would do 15,000 one year, and then they would do 15,000, and we decided to start splitting it. Let's do half. They do half. Y'all wanna wait till the police jury does that? No.
No, sir, let's not wait, Mr. Mayor.
I do have a suggestion, though.
Ms. Olive, we open for your suggestion.
And I think this is certainly a worthy cause, but I certainly think someone should be here to represent that. And we should not just take for granted money and how it's given out. So I would suggest.
We're on the board.
Well, yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
one at a time. Ms. Olive, your recommendation is
That someone appears before the council to formally accept it.
okay. Ms. Olive is suggesting that we're not doing it unless they come. Okay.
Well, can I?
Ms. Robinson, just one at a time, please. Ms. Robinson.
It's my understanding that Mr. Lenore is on the board.
Not at this time. I'm on the advisory board.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll step down. Just advisory, I work with them. But I can get you someone to be here next week.
Well, the only other thing that I'd like to say is I want to continue.
Ms. Robinson. Ms. Robinson has the floor.
I'm sorry. I want to continue funding because I think it is a worthy cause, but there are some issues that need to be addressed. And I'm not sure if it's, since we're going to fund it, I don't want to get in the middle of a problem, but there are some issues that we need to check into.
Okay. Would it be appropriate, and first, that a representative be here to present, and that as a policy annually, that annually or semi-annually or whatever frequency you decide, that someone from Teen Court come and give us a report on what they do?
I think that'd be great.
Okay. So basically, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to table this, and then we're going to ask a representative from Teen Court to appear at our next council meeting to, at that time, give us a report, and somebody, even though they send it in writing, how did they send us, a letter, or how did they do this, Ms. Gilman? I'm sorry? They delivered a letter requesting, okay, that someone from that organization come and present to us first some kind of data on what they have done and what they are doing and what they propose to do, and then we will let them know that our policy is that we expect them to not at the money asking time, but to give us a report so we can know what it is, what the deliverable is in this situation. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
So we're tabling this. All right. All right. Is Mr. Ridgell present? Mr. Richard Ridgell. Is Mr. Ridgell present? No.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hamlin.
Mr. Ridgell, I don't know what happened to him, but I would like to discuss this issue.
Okay, Mr. Hamlin.
Mr. Ridgell has come to us a couple of times in reference to our closing hours.
Closing hours for establishments that sell alcoholic beverages.
Yeah,
Okay.
alcohol, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The closing time for selling alcoholic beverages. Presently, we close at 12 o'clock, are permitted to sell alcoholic beverages until 12 o'clock, Monday through Saturday. There was some options on whether to extend those hours from 12 to 1 or 2, or to sell on Sundays. I tried to do some checking and see where the problem lies. And I understand that the problem is in the after hours at some businesses past 12 o'clock that stays open. People with the consumption of alcohol have the tendency to gather at some of these businesses 2 to 4 o'clock, because there are businesses outside the city of Bastrop where they are allowed to stay open until 2. The problem seems to lie, as far as I can find out from talking to people, is the activity that occurs after closing time, which is 2 o'clock. I understand that those people filter back into the city at various food serving places, and they may have a tendency to congregate and block traffic and interfere with that business regular operation. And checking with some people, I felt that it might be better if, rather than extending the hours after 12, is to allow them to sell Sunday from 2 until 10. That'd be one work shift, one 8-hour work shift, and all businesses will be eligible or able to sell alcoholic beverages on Sundays during those hours. The one that's been closing, I'll give them one work shift, 8 hours from 2 to 10. From checking, there were very few problems occurring between 10 and 12. So, except our police department, opening from 2 to 10 on Sunday, I do not see where that will put any extra burden on our police department than what they have now. Now, if you do it, extend the hours from 12 to 1 or 12 to 2, I can see where it would cause additional work on our police department. But from 2 to 10 on Sunday, I do not see where that would put an extra burden on them. And I asked for reports on what kind of problem we had between before 10 o'clock in reference to the sale of alcohol. We have made provision to try to work with other businesses and accommodating them. Secondly, there are other cities or towns in the parish that are also open on Sunday, and I can understand where the city of Bastrop can allow the sale of alcoholic beverages from 2 to 10 on Sunday. I've talked to some of the I talked to the council people, and I had various comments. So, saying that, I would like to go through the procedure, whether it's a motion or whether we have to draw it up first, that we allow the alcohol to sell alcoholic beverages from 2 to 10 on Sunday.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir, that's the motion.
Okay. second? Is there a second to Mr. Hamlin's motion? Is there a second to the motion? The motion dies for lack of a second.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Walker, liquor license, please.
No liquor license application.
No liquor license applications. Okay, staff, help me. Have I left anything off that I need to do? I do? Okay.
Mayor Hawkins,
Okay, any other, yes, ma'am.
I have something that I'd like for us to discuss and come
Okay,
up.
let's expand the agenda then. Any other business be brought, well, is there a motion to extend the, well, first, is there a citizen who would like to make a comment to the Mayor and Board of Alderpersons? Okay, give me a motion then to extend the agenda.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to extend the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gordon, second by Mr. Hamlin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ms. Robinson, we'll go with your item first.
I haven't had a complaint, and I think Mr. Hamlin was called also, that after the fireworks, people left the property in front of Cox Funeral Home. And I went up and took pictures of the trash that they had placed kind of in a weird place. And it looked to me like it was done deliberately, because it was not in a sack, and it was a banner that had fireworks and some pieces of fireworks placed by the bench and a sitting area in front of Cox. And I feel like because of where it was, and I didn't get the pictures developed in time to get them up here, but I will bring them and we can put them in the file if you'd like to. But I feel like we need to have at least $150 or $200 deposit for these people if they're going to insist on not cleaning their mess up. And then after an inspection from the fire department or whomever, give them their deposit back if it meets our criteria.
Okay. All right. Would you, and I received the email from the complainant, and I'm wondering, did he file a complaint with the police department?
I'm not aware.
Let us,
I don't either.
let us take into consideration what you said, and we need to find out how we can make that a part of the application process for purchasing fireworks licenses. We also need to, and I'm pretty sure we have a file on individuals who apply. There's a file for each one of these individuals, that we include information of this type and other types. Because Chief, do you get complaints of violations by folks who have firework stands?
About the trash and stuff.
About the trash or selling to minors, anything of that nature?
Not so much that, no, sir, not.
Okay. Discharging fireworks, any violation that they might commit?
We get complaints on discharging.
At around the,
No,
okay.
not close to the area. They've
Okay.
got so many feet, they can't.
Is that state law?
Yes, sir. And we have city ordinance also.
Okay. We need to review the city ordinance and then consider making Ms. Robinson's suggestion as a part of the ordinance, which will allow them to buy the license. We need, and this is applicable to any business. We need to have stipulations which control their existence and which can be used if we choose to use them, so to deny them getting licenses there. You know, my thing has been constantly, whether it's with alcohol or property or anything else, there's a responsibility for a privilege. And we just need to be sure that we have it as part of the documents that regulate them if we're going to enforce them. Then we get charged with discrimination or acting beyond our rights when we don't have anything on paper. You know, staff, we talk about this all the time. When we don't have stuff on paper and we want to enforce that. So, okay.
I think Mr. Gordon suggested too that we do something about, and if he would, I would prefer he discusses it about the signs that they were supposed to post.
Mayor Hawkins.
Mr. Gordon?
During the conversations about the fireworks stand, I talked with Miss Olive a couple days after the fireworks went on sale, and through discussion with her, I think she proposed in her recommendations to the ordinance that there be a sign posted stating the firework discharge hours within the city limits of Bastrop. I went by several stands that were inside the city. The only one that I found had a posting when I went by was one stand over in front of Cox's, and it was posted in very small print, less than 22-point print. The posting was smaller than a letter size envelope stuck on the side of the tent, and I think her recommendation to the ordinance was that there be a sign posted stating that was a part of the ordinance. I feel like we need to make the fireworks personnel aware of this and make it mandated that they have that sign posted. I would recommend at least a 2-inch letter print so that so that their patrons could see it, that it's posted visibly and compliant with the ordinance. If I'm not mistaken, it's on the ordinance, but I know it was suggested by Ms. Olive.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's be sure and amend the ordinance and specify the size of the sign and state that the sign must be purchased by the operator of that stand, and we will be sure that our code enforcement officer or fire prevention inspects for that as they inspect these facilities. And if it wasn't done, it's our negligence that we didn't inspect and specify. But again, I want to be sure that we specify, and we'll need your input, you and Ms. Olive's input, on the size of the sign and the number of signs and whatever the distribution should be. And we need to come back and amend our ordinance with that specificity. And then that makes it easier for you to enforce, code enforcement, fire prevention, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Mayor, his license, I understand, of the fireworks sellers is good for this entire year. So Christmas coming up, they'll be able to sell on this license.
Yes. But I think we can amend between now and then.
And it would, okay,
Yeah.
that was a question.
We can't go back and prosecute them.
No, we'll be able to get it for
Yes.
the upcoming.
Yes, sir.
Could I make a...
Mr.
since
Lenore?
Since we're talking about signs and downtown signs and we're regulating them, I don't see anything. Is it asking too much that their signs be somewhat similar and that they place them near the entrance where they are visible? If they have more than one entrance, then they need more than one sign. And we already have a diagram for your signs and what size they can be. Now, they don't have to have all that wording. They could be maybe smaller, but at least they could conform to some type of order, rather than everybody just scribbling something up.
Okay. And again, Mr. Lenore, let me include you on, I just said Mr. Gordon and Ms. Olive, but if you will work with them and come up with the specificity of the sign size, and let's be prepared to amend the ordinance as soon as we can complete this, so that they'll be a part of it, and we will distribute this to the folks who have licenses. And the next shooting time will be Christmas?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for your input on that. On the expanded agenda, permission to enter into a contract with Denman Engineering on the Central Fire Station roof. We had a meeting, we've been having meetings for some period of time, and we have found a roof system that meets the money that we have and is compatible to the Central Fire Station roof. The fire chief, chief of staff, and engineering company, and I had a meeting today. We need to get your permission to enter into a contract with them and engineering to do the plans and to coordinate the process of this roofing project. We liberally, with all the stuff that we have to go through, and if everything falls in place, all of the inspections and all the approvals and advertising, we're talking, we said October in the room, but I'm going to say by mid-November, we should be through with this if everything falls in place. We got the money, but we got to do planning, get the plans accepted. Fire marshal has to do it, inspect it, get okayed, do advertising, people bid on it, get the bids accepted, approved, and then the contractor has to have a window of opportunity to get the material. And we're thinking, they think October. I want to give them a bigger window, and we will include in there a penalty if they don't, if the contractors don't do it in a timely fashion. But I need a permission to enter a contract.
Mayor Hawkins,
Mr.
I
Gordon.
make a motion to give you permission to enter into contract with Denman Engineering
Mr.
on this
Gordon makes
matter.
the motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Olive seconds his motion. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no. Ayes have it. Third item on the expanded agenda is I need your permission to advertise for bids for demolition of houses. We have a small amount of money that we can use to demolish houses. We had to go in some kind of priority. We targeted an area after doing surveys to find out where the most and worst houses were, and on the major thoroughfares. So we're in the process of developing that list. If you have some extreme houses that you want to be considered, please submit them. We're not going to be able to do them all, but we're going to be working on the major corridors and areas where the most and worst houses are and where there's extreme criminal activities. But I need your permission to advertise for bids for demolishing houses.
Make a motion.
Mr. Hamlin does.
I second.
Ms. Robinson seconds his motions. Any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no. Ayes have it. Any other business to be brought before this Mayor and Board of Alderpersons?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Olive.
Thank you. Last month in our call meeting, we talked about a forum, which was a suggestion that I have, in as much as we have the Southern Link channel as a medium for communication. And I'd like to ask that we, with the upcoming election for October 4th, look at a date, set a date in August to have a public forum and to utilize the newspaper to announce it. Could we do that in the upcoming weeks, Mr. Mayor Hawkins?
Yes. The election is going to be in like October 6th. Do you want to do it in August, or do you want to do it closer to the election itself?
I was thinking in terms of August, to give people time, the exposure to hear all of the candidates, and they'll have time after that to talk to them on any issues that emerge as a result of the forum.
Okay. And we're talking one or two or more, what?
I was thinking in terms of one forum. However, if there's a demand for another forum.
Okay. All right. I think the concept, is there any objection to it? Okay. We'll do that.
Man, when is the election?
October 6th, I believe. Let me look. I'm looking at this calendar. It's on it's on a Saturday, so maybe October the 11th. It might be October 11th. It's either the first or second, somewhere second or third week in October.
The election
Yeah.
is on October 4th. That's
It's October
correct.
4th?
Yes.
Okay. October 4th. Any objection? We'll make it happen. All righty. Will the city of Bastrop be planning this?
I'd like to be a part of the planning.
I mean, my question is this going to be, if this is going to be a city of Bastrop? Because the chamber has done it before. I know that the city did the police jury telecast, and that was, yeah. So the city of Bastrop will be sponsoring this and conducting it and all that. Okay? All righty. Any other business to be brought before this mayor and board of alderpersons? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
I'll make the
moved.
motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jointly, consensus, and everybody. We adjourn.
I've been a singer. Yeah.